Good afternoon, Venture Atlanta. My name is Bert Ellis. I'm probably one of the oldest members of this august group. I've been hanging around the technology business within Atlanta since '93 is when we really get started going. It is my pleasure to bring on the stage Mark Cuban. There's not much introduction you have to do about Mark, so I'm not going to do much, but there is a little bit of history that I think is worth noting. Mark was born in Pittsburgh, so we happen to share a loyalty and fandom to anything Pittsburgh, particularly the Steelers right now. Then basketball season starts and we'll lose Mark to the Mavs, but we have that in common. Back in '95 when I was starting IXL, Mark started a company called Broadcast.com. In that era, Broadcast.com ramped up to a huge business, and at the same time IXL was doing it, Mark sold Broadcast.com in late '99 to Yahoo for $5.6 billion. I missed the part that Mark learned better than I did about selling your company when you ramp it up. So Mark did that, hedged his position with Yahoo in early 2000. So he bested the downturn of the internet back in 2000 and used his money at that point in time to buy the Mavs in 2000, and has taken the Mavs to one of the most valuable franchises in sports, in all of sports, with a world championship in 2011 with the Mavs as well. He is well known now as not only a media personality or a successful technology entrepreneur, then a sports entrepreneur and incredible successful, and now you also know him from television as a media personality and major investor through Shark Tank. With all of that background, we're going to bring up Mark, and we're going to talk a little bit between the two of us, and then open it for questions from the audience. Mark Cuban. Thanks, Bert. Mark, if you could, because there's a lot of people in this room that weren't even around when you did Broadcast.com. It's worth a little bit of that history to talk about how you and Todd Wagner started that company and the history of that and what you built up and sold.
So back in 1995, I went to Indiana University, was living in Dallas, go Hoosiers. And in order for us to listen to an IU basketball game, we would call somebody in Bloomington, Indiana, have them put a radio next to a speakerphone. Down in Dallas, we'd have our 12-pack of beer and a speakerphone, and that's how we listened to games, and we couldn't watch them. And so my buddy Todd Wagner, who went to IU as well, was like, there's got to be a way we can use this new internet thing to listen or watch these games. And my background at that point in time, I had a company that did networks, local and wide area networks, and I wrote software for about 8 years, network-based software. So I was like, okay, I think I can figure something out. So we started a company called AudioNet, went to a local radio station, took an 8-hour VCR, connected it to the radio station board, recorded 8 hours of audio from the radio station, took it to my house on an old Packard Bell computer, encoded it, and turned it into a WAV file of all things, and then put it on a website we called AudioNet. And then I would go on Prodigy and AOL and CompuServe forums and say, anybody interested in listening to Dallas radio about Dallas news or sports, go to this website called AudioNet. Now mind you, back in 1995, it wasn't called streaming, it wasn't called over the top, it was called netcasting. We were netcasters. And in order to listen to an audio stream online, you had to have a PC that was fast enough, 90 megahertz. You had to download TCP/IP software, and then as we got further along, you had to download also streaming software. So back then, people thought the whole idea of streaming was the dumbest thing they ever heard. Literally, I would walk in and I try to explain it to people. We're starting this company. You can listen to radio stations. You can listen to music stations that we create. You can upload your own content and other people can listen to it. You can start your own radio show or video show, and anybody anywhere in the world can watch it or listen to it. And people would go, that's so stupid. I'll just turn on the TV if I want to watch something. I'll just turn on my radio. But we got it started, and so we were really the first streaming company back then, and grew the company from 1995 when we just did audio to 1998 we took it public. It was the largest IPO in the history of the stock market at the time. And then in 99, it closed in 2000, we sold to Yahoo. Now, Yahoo kind of blew it, but just to give you a sense of what we were doing back then, we had the ability for anybody to, now people didn't have cell phones, but we had the ability, if you had a digital video recorder, a digital video camera, you could upload your videos and have your own show. We own 10% of Lionsgate Studios so that we could take all their movies and most of their TV shows and put them online. We had, I don't even know how many hundreds of internet radio stations. We had, the laws were different back then, so we had on-demand CDs. So instead of going to like an iTunes, if you wanted, there's Maroon 5 actually broke their first hits on broadcast.com by being on our CD jukebox. And so all these things from Pandora to Spotify to YouTube, you name it, were things that we were doing back in the late 90s. Sold it to Yahoo, thought the thing was going to blow up and go crazy. Then, as Bert said, the whole internet stock market crashed. Yahoo freaked out, and I went on to bigger and better things than Yahoo. Now Yahoo is called what? Exactly. Oath. Yeah. So you win some, you lose some, but it turned out okay for me.
Mark has majority interest in about 5 companies. You got the Mavericks, you got Access TV, you got Magnolia Pictures, you got Landmark, and 2929.
Those are the bigger ones. Yeah.
Those are the big ones that his Mark Cuban Companies runs from there. He has we got 80 investments in Shark Tank.
Does anybody here watch Shark Tank? The rest of you who don't watch Shark Tank, stand up. I want to find out what's going on. And if you don't know, it's now on Sunday nights, ABC. First rule of being an entrepreneur, always be selling. But anyways, I've got about 80 companies from Shark Tank and probably another 100 other investments that I've made where I'm a minority owner or advisor.
So what is your management style with your companies?
That's a big question. So if I start a company and I'm growing it, then I'm an all-in management style. I mean, I get consumed by it. I eat, sleep, drink, dream about it. I mean, anybody here who's an entrepreneur that's just all in, you'll find yourselves, and I know, Bert, you've been through, where you're dreaming about your company. And when I'm in that stage, I mean, that's when I destroy relationships, But now that I'm more of an investor, and the companies that I'm majority owner in are pretty either substantial or have an established management team, my style really is to be supportive. I'm not a meetings guy. Typically, the only time I'll do a meeting is if you're writing me a check. I'm not a wear suit guy. I'm not going to get dressed up unless somebody's writing me a check. But what I do is, and there's a couple companies here, Car 360 and Converge, Rob, that if you run into them can tell you, I try to get email updates every week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it may be, depending on the company. And if I invest in you, I trust you, right? I invest in you because I have high hopes for the company. I think there's something special about your organization. I think there's something good about you as an entrepreneur, but I want to keep updated so that I can help you. And when you update me with an email, my style is, I want bad news first. I don't want to sit on the phone and talk for 3 hours and spend 30 minutes about your kids. I don't want you to tell me about the color choices you're making in the office. I don't want to hear about the things you should be able to deal with on an ongoing basis, because that's your job, right? My job is to help you solve problems. And so if there's something going wrong, customer, you're having problems with a customer, you're having a tech problem, you're having a sales problem, that's where I come in. And so I really try to be hands-on as a problem solver rather than micromanage and say, well, why aren't you doing this or why aren't you doing that? You know, because again, as entrepreneurs, you get to see firsthand what's working and not working. You know, right? The challenge I have in managing a lot of this is we as entrepreneurs and salespeople as well, we lie to ourselves. We lie to ourselves all day, every day, right? Oh, it's going great. Well, maybe it's not as great as it should be, but no one wants to think that things aren't going right or that something's a challenge. And so part of my challenge, other than just solving problems, is also trying to get my entrepreneurs to really be self-aware about their companies, to know what's going right and what's going wrong. Because too many times we sugarcoat things and try to tell ourselves, or particularly try to tell our investors, oh, it's great, when in reality, you know, it's like the duck. We're paddling as fast as we can. So, you know, I try to be supportive, I try to be aware, and I try to be helpful.
I can certainly attest to that. Mark and I financed a company here in town some years ago called Mobile, started by an IXL alumni, Juan Pablo Henrico, and Mark told me then that he likes to get involved in companies when there's a check involved, either my check going in or somebody else's check taking us out. He is very quick on the draw to make decisions. He makes gut decisions on betting on jockeys. That's how he did this, and then we came in together, and he is the best in the world at selling. Selling Mobile to Samsung, nobody could have done it like he did. But the other part about him, as he said, he wants the bad news. When you get the bad news, the first thing Mark does is, what do we do about it? It's not pointing fingers at who screwed up. It's what do we do? It was great to see how Mark gets in the lifeboat with you and rows.
Yeah, being an entrepreneur is about being a problem solver, right? What is selling? Selling is not convincing. Selling is helping. As tech entrepreneurs here, if you're going to a customer, whether it's a consumer or you're in B2B, either you're making your customer's life easier, either you're reducing your stress, or you're making it harder and you're increasing their stress. I mean, over the years, I think some of the things I've come to learn, particularly dealing with some of these Shark Tank companies, is one of the greatest skill sets that an entrepreneur, employee, salesperson can have is reducing stress. If you find that when you go to work, stress increases the minute you walk in the door, you've got a problem. If you have an employee and the minute they walk in the door, you have a problem and they have a problem. And what I've found is the best companies, the best employees that I have, the best investments that I have are the people who reduce stress, because those are the people we don't want to give up. They may not, they don't make the most noise, they don't always get the biggest paychecks, they don't always close the biggest deals, but when there's problems that need to be solved, they're already working on them before you're even aware of them. Those are the people that we love, and those are the things, reducing stress. If you set in your mind goals as an entrepreneur for your company, one, keeping your, selling and keeping your customers very happy. Two, staying ahead of the curve with your competitors. And three, reducing stress of everybody around you, all your stakeholders, you're going to be successful. Because if you think about all your personal experiences, would you rather do business with somebody who creates stress, or do you want to do business with the person who reduces stress? It's an easy answer, but you'd be amazed at how many people don't follow through in that. And then part two to that is, nice is way undervalued. Particularly in this day and age, if you turn on the news, everything seems like it's going to get blown up, right? Being nice just makes life so much easier. And look, I learned the hard way. I had to have my partner, Todd, came to me one day and he goes, I like to curse. He goes, I don't care about cursing, but you curse too much. Not everybody's as accepting as cursing as you are. Calm the fuck down. And I took that to heart. Not so much the cursing part, but it became apparent to me that the nicer I got, the more effective people around me got, the more productive they got, the more sales we had. I was undervaluing nice. I started my first company after I got fired from a job, and I was 24, just turned 24. my first real company, if you will. And I was always go, 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 all consumed, right? Live it, eat it, sleep it, breathe it. And I knew people couldn't keep up or work as hard as many hours as me, but I wanted them to. And we were successful and we didn't have much turnover, but I could have done a better job if I were nicer. And broadcast.com, I got a little bit nicer, right, as things. But then once I got to the Mavs and some of these other companies, and Todd reminded me, you know, and really told me, you know, just nice works. And so when you find yourself going to work, when you're finding yourself dealing with customers, when you're finding yourself making decisions, we all get that agita, right? That feeling in our stomach, that tenseness, that stress at various points in times that we all have to go through. But sometimes you just need to calm the fuck down, right? Take a deep breath and be nice. Because you'll find out that people will do much more. If you reduce the stress of people and you're nice, you're going to have such a huge advantage. No matter what your technology is, no matter how it compares, even if it's a download for an app, people will still have to deal with you. Your culture will come through. Being nice, being supportive, reducing stress, that all comes through even in an app.
I teach a course periodically at business schools, and at the end part of my speech is I've had good partners and bad partners. Good partners are better. Mark is a good partner. Yeah, Todd Wagner was his original partner. They're still partners.
Yep.
What sectors are you looking to invest in now? You got all the opportunistic opportunities with Shark Tank and all,
right.
But what are you looking to invest in?
I mean, right now, I focus on things that are AI driven, artificial intelligence driven, whether it's machine learning, deep learning neural networks, medical applications. But within AI is a buzzword that everybody's using right now. You know, and to that point, you know, we as old guys, we go back and it's like 1995, we talk about the internet. And I would say to people back in 1995, look, if you don't understand the internet, you're not going to be able to do business. And now that's just blocking and tackling. It seems obvious. Back then it wasn't. Right? I could even take you further back to my first company. You know, what we did, it was a company called Micro Solutions, and we did local area networks and wide area networks. And I used to walk into companies and say, you're going to have to hook these PCs together at some point. That'll make you more productive, more effective, you know, give you a competitive advantage. And people were like, nah, I'll just carry this floppy from this PC to that PC. Yeah, okay. But today, we're at the same type of inflection point with artificial intelligence. You don't have to be an expert and be able to put together your own neural network. You know, you don't have to know what weights and biases are. But you have to have more than just a cursory understanding. Just like you have to know the difference between, you know, different types of websites, and you have to understand e-commerce if you're in e-commerce. You have to have a cursory understanding of how apps work. You're going to have at least, if not more, a cursory understanding of artificial intelligence, because it will change everything we do. And if the internet was 10x in terms of change to business, artificial intelligence will be 100x or more. Now, why does it change so much? And why is it happening now? The reason it's happening now is over the last few years, there's something called GPUs, which are just processors, right? Just like Intel CPUs, these are specific function GPUs. GPUs from NVIDIA, AMD, and others, their performance has skyrocketed over the last few years. They process information, or information can be processed so much more quickly. Things that used to take 500 hours 5 years ago for artificial intelligence purposes now can take 30 minutes or less. And it's going to get faster and faster. So that's why now, that's what changed. Now, what does artificial intelligence mean, and how does it impact your business? In the past, you'd put together a little business plan, and you put together a spreadsheet, and then you'd figure it out, what's the number I have to get to, right? And you do what if, what if, what if. What if, what if, what if. What if, what if, what if. And you might even have 2 or 3 people working with you, or I'll sit and talk with Bert, and it'll be like, well, try something different, and you get the benefit of 2 people, or 3 people, or 5 people throwing ideas at you to say, what if this? And so that's good, but with artificial intelligence, not only does it take the what ifs that you enter in and create, and the things that you label, but it can figure out every possible what if combination. Now think about that. So with machine learning, if I want to know if something is going to be true or false, or has a great probability of this happening or that happening, or You know, can I categorize it this way or that way? Is it going to make money, lose money? If you could have every possible what-if scenario thought through for you, that'd be a good thing, right? That's what machine learning is starting to do for businesses now. Now take it even further. When you put together that spreadsheet and you're trying to think of all the different combinations, you couldn't come up with every variable. There are going to be all kinds of things you left out of your spreadsheet that you want to go what if with about. What neural networks do, or deep learning, if you want to call it that, probably more apt, it starts coming up with more variables that you didn't think of. And then it starts generalizing, not only are there these variables that you didn't think of, but there's all these other things you didn't think of either, and I'm going to give you some ideas how they can impact your business. It's crazy the types of, how fast it can go through all these iterations and come back with information you never even considered before. That's why it's going to change business. And it's a simple example to apply it within a spreadsheet realm or a financial realm. But the types of things with video, computer vision, and creating new ideas and new opportunities. I invested in a company called Genetesis, and it's a medical AI-based company. And what it does, every organ in your body emits an electrical signal, and there are sensors now that can pick up that little tiny electrical signal. And there's one that these guys licensed actually exclusively that picks up that electrical signal from your heart. And they take the output, they pick up that signal, just there, and then picks it up. Then it saves it to an old school WAV file, right? Just an audio file. But then it runs it through a neural network, and because it's done it so many times now, it can tell you, so right now, any one of 5 ailments that you may have, heart ailments that you may have, with about a 98% accuracy, which is far better than any cardiologist or any doctor can ever do. That's just the start. That's just one example. These are the things we're going to see within every industry. Finance, medical, I know Bert, you're active in it. There's not an industry that's not going to be impacted. Your business is going to be impacted. I don't have to guess, I'm going to tell you. With 100% certainty, your business is going to be impacted. It's going to impact the workforce and jobs, right? On one hand, it'll create jobs. I was talking to some of our guys, Car 360. There's going to be a need to label things, label pictures, label actions, so that if I'm trying to do a neural network that deals with things that hold water, I need somebody to label this as a bottle that holds water, but I need somebody also to label a picture of 2 hands together, because this also is a water receptacle, right? And so there's going to be jobs of people that just sitting in big rooms like this with a laptop just labeling pictures all day long, making $12 an hour. But on the flip side, anything that involves putting data into a database, or looking at that data in that database, or scheduling because of call-ins or data from a database, those jobs are gone, right? Absolutely gone. And so the person that takes a call to schedule a car to go visit, to go fix your muffler, right? Or to come pick up your car to go take it in the shop, gone. Over the next 5 years, gone. So there's going to be a disruption and change in the types of jobs. That's going to impact your customers. That's going to impact your businesses. That's going to impact the future of business. And so I don't want to be, I want to be as clear and as forceful as I possibly can, because as fellow entrepreneurs, we always have to try to look for an edge. We always have to understand how our industry is changing. We always have to understand not only how we differentiate ourselves in our companies, but I always want to know who can kick my ass, right? In all of my businesses, who can kick my ass, and can I kick my own ass first? Because if you can disrupt yourself first, the person who could otherwise do it is not going to do it, and you can compete and be successful. So pay attention to AI. It's important. I mean, look, if you go to my house, right next to my bed, there's a book, Machine Learning for Dummies. If you go into my bathroom, there's deep neural networks for dummies, right? If you go in, there's a something for dummies in every room of my house, It can go 2 ways, I know, but I'm just telling you, put the time. I mean, I've taken, I can't even tell you how many hours now I spend every week if not daily, working, like I'll go onto Amazon, AWS, and go through their machine learning tutorials. Don't think to yourself, I'm not technical enough, or I'm not going to get this, or I don't get into this, or it's too much. Try it. Get as far as you can, because it's like doing a basic website and a little bit of HTML. Just having done that, you feel smarter and you feel a little bit more confident about this. I don't want to be an alarmist, but I'm trying to scare the hell out of you because it's important.
So how does Mark Cuban go after a sector like that? Shark Tank, you got people coming to you; those are opportunistic. You've identified a sector. Do you personally go out and look for deals? Do you wait for them to come to you? Do you have a team?
Yeah, I mean, most of the stuff comes to me, and most of it, I go through it myself. So if someone like this Genetizis, it was a 22-year-old kid, Payush, from Ohio State, and I just started peppering him with questions. And if it was...
But you met him at Ohio State, or did he come to see you in Dallas?
No, he just sent me an email.
Sent you an email?
Yeah, just sent me, I still haven't met him.
Okay.
And so he sends me an email. I'm like, this stuff is cool. I started doing my research and started getting into it. And I like doing it because every time I do that, I learn more. And start peppering him with questions. Then I asked a couple of people that know more about it than I do, and they gave me some questions, and he gave me the right answers. Then we negotiated on investment, and away it went. And that leads to another thing. I hate investing in Silicon Valley companies. There's only one good thing in Silicon Valley. They're better at exits because of all the venture capital companies. They're better at exits. I'd rather invest in an Atlanta company, a Dallas company, a Miami company, an Austin company, Phoenix company, New York company. Well, maybe not New York, but Silicon Valley is the worst. The cultures, I hate the culture there. I mean, it's just everybody thinks they're the greatest thing since sliced bread. And it's almost like old school. You hear stories about old school Hollywood where you're always looking for the next starlet, the next script, and all this. In Silicon Valley, it's like they're, yeah, they'll come and work for you, but you just have to realize, I'm working on my startup that's going to be bigger than your company, but I'm going to do you a favor and let you hire me. Come on now. So, point being, you have a great ecosystem. You have a great culture for startups in Atlanta. There's great investors like Bert that get involved as angel and seed investors. You can do round A, round B. And I'd also tell you that now's the time to really start thinking about going public. And why? Because there are so few companies going public. Back when we went public, back in the 90s, there were more than 8,000 public companies. You know how many public companies there are listed on exchanges now? About 3,500. And most of them are more mature. The number of IPOs going public, particularly in tech and growth companies, most of them are bigger companies that went private through private equity, whatever, but that are growth companies like you see here, 10 a year. So all these public market investors have no growth stocks really to invest in. You don't have to be 100 million in sales. You don't have to be 50 million in sales. Should you be profitable, it's to your advantage, but you don't even have to be profitable. So the whole Silicon Valley culture is Uber, whatever, don't go public. They're wrong. They're 100% wrong. If you have the opportunity to go public, and there's new rules now, Reg A, all kinds of stuff from the SEC, my buddies at the SEC, there's new rules that say, I mean, I would tell you they're idiots, but you already know. But there's new rules, they didn't do everything wrong, that you can do a $20 million raise with a lot less overhead, a lot less paperwork. So if you get the chance, I would certainly look into it because it's a great opportunity.
We got about 15 minutes. Questions from the audience? Right here. Yell louder.
Mark.
There may be a mic coming by. Until you get the mic, yell.
It's Mark. I'm not going to answer your question if you call me Mr. Anything.
All right, Mark.
Yes, thank you.
Is there any way we can get 5 minutes of your time before you leave?
No.
All right. Had to ask.
Sorry, but it doesn't hurt to ask.
Good try.
It's all right. Thank you.
But if you're smart, you'll be able to figure out what my email is.
All right, take the mic right there. That's my last question. That's the big close.
Mark, this morning Ernie Garcia talked about the challenges of running a public company or being a public company CEO, and yet you're telling us that it's a great time to do it. Aside from the ability to raise permanent capital, why is that? Just because of the scarcity?
So on two ends, look, the minute you take money from anybody, you're not really the boss, right? And so on one hand, if you're a private company, you have investors like me and Bert, or you have even worse, VCs or private equity as your investors, right?
We're nice.
I would rather deal with the public markets and institutional investors and analysts where the true value of my company is reflected in the stock price, as opposed to having one big investor who's not happy, right? Where you're not hitting your numbers, and because you're not public, they're going to give you a down round. Because the minute you get that down round, all things change, right? So if I have the choice between paperwork out the ass, right, but knowing how people, investors, shareholders value my company on a second-by-second basis, I'll deal with that. Because, look, you're going to get, the point being, you're going to get pressure one way or the other. But the greatest pressure is on yourself to succeed anyways, and to be successful anyways, and to hit your numbers. No one puts more pressure on themselves than an entrepreneur. It was easy to deal with bankers. It was easy to deal with shareholders. It was a whole lot more difficult when our investors were just private investors and they got nervous. That was hard.
That hand's been up there for a good while. Reward that. Perseverance.
I have a mic over.
Here, you got one right there. So while we're in a minute.
Mark, I want to thank you.
Right there, and then come back
Yeah,
to
don't come here.
In August, you said you would invest in cryptos, and it's been about a couple months, which is a decade in the crypto space. So I want to hear from you, what have you learned since then, and where do you see the space going
Sure.
in the future?
I've always been a big fan of blockchain, right? I've got something called Mercury Protocol, which is a messaging protocol that we think is going to go to the next level for social networks and ad networks, et cetera, et cetera. But if you're interested, it's mercuryprotocol.com. And there's a whole white paper and everything there. And then I'm also involved in one called Unicoin, which is esports betting globally. So blockchain I've always been a huge fan of. The question everybody wants to know about is what's going on with Bitcoin, Ethereum, is it a currency? No, it's not a currency, right? The way blockchain and even with Bitcash or all the extensions and the SegWit2 and all that, they can't process enough transactions for it to actually be a currency, right? It's a challenge. And in terms of what's the right valuation, Bitcoin, Ethereum, et cetera, the cryptocurrencies are a lot like stocks that don't pay dividends. They're worth what somebody will pay for them. They're a lot like collectibles, right? The beauty of Bitcoin is there's a finite number that can ever be made. And as time goes on, it gets harder and harder to make them, right? So as long as people who own it don't sell it, the scarcity level is through the roof. And right now, you're seeing a lot of demand come in because it's like the old days of day trading on internet stocks. Everybody and their brother is talking about it. Everybody takes a little, dip in it. And now all of a sudden, they made some money, right? And then they tell their friends. So the demand is far outstripping the supply, and that's going to cause the price to go up. So is it a currency? No. Is there intrinsic value? Everybody can argue. I think at some point there will be. I don't know if there is today, but it's worth what somebody will pay for it, and that's driven by supply and demand, and the demand is far outstripping the supply, so the price will keep on going up. There you go.
Hi, Mark. How are you?
Great.
My name's Sanira Madani, and I'm CEO and founder of a payment technology company called Fat Merchant. And I want to start by first saying that I actually grew up in Dallas and went to Colleyville High School, and so I'm a huge Mavs fan.
Good. I like you already.
And I'm a huge advocate of reading, every business book that I can. And one of the books that I think that you've actually helped contribute to is Turing Shaw's book on venture capitalism. And he wrote about, the different stories and your stories as well. And he has a quote in there that I pretty much live by is, there's no such thing as a $1 billion idea, but only a $1 billion execution. And so you see that plastered all over our company's walls. My question to you is, for those companies that you've seen successfully execute, because anyone can have a great idea and go raise money, what are the key traits that you've seen for successful executions? Oh,
it's easy. I mean, yes, you have to execute. Everybody's got ideas, that's the easy part. But sale, customer happy, yes or no? Sale, customer happy, yes or no, right? Sale, because everything just feeds that, right? Everything else is noise. And part of that though, so there is a part B to that, right? Because one tenet of good business is always listen to your customers, right? You always want to listen, but you don't always want to do what they tell you, right? Because the customer's job is to make their company successful, right? And when they tell you what they need and what they tell you what they want, they're typically thinking about the right here and now. They're not thinking about your potential competitors. They're not thinking about the future of your organization. So you have to also innovate. You have to differentiate. So you have to be out here innovating, differentiating, understanding, how you fit within your industry and how you can get ahead. But then you have to turn that into sales, customers, customer happiness. And so if you can execute on those things, things typically work out well. It's not, well, my office is pretty. My office always looks like crap, right? I mean, our offices now, we have these Vera desks everywhere. I'm not, you don't have to look the part. I mean, I certainly never have, right? You don't have to sound the part. You just have to find a way to put your customers in a position to succeed and good things happen. Congrats. Good for you. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Hi, Mark. My name's Vance Dawson. I'm the owner of Advanced Claims Technologies, and we provide CAD drawings when storms come through. So the recent hurricanes, if your home was affected, adjuster, contractor could reach out, find out how many squares of shingles, gutters, all that kind of stuff from us to replace it. We're looking to advance the company by using drones and a lot of automated stuff as well. So my question to you is, when I send you an email about this company, is it short and sweet, or do you like a novel?
I make a decision within the first paragraph.
Okay.
Right. If what you say in the first paragraph gets my attention, I'll keep on reading. If not, I hit the delete key.
Sounds great. Fair enough. Thank you.
Hey, Mark. My name is Pav. I'm the founder and CEO of a company here called Stackfolio. We help financial institutions trade loans, and we match needs using their public information and AI. And so my question to you is actually about building a company in a sort of outside of Silicon Valley area. So you said that you love investing in companies that are not in Silicon Valley, and I know a lot of people try to sort of hone in on the capital raising part of being a non-Silicon Valley company. I actually think that's not as much of a problem, because if the only thing standing between you and raising money is taking a flight out, the amount of capital in a certain area isn't really a problem. But one of the things that we really struggle with is finding and recruiting senior talent, because that really has to be housed where you are. So you've got a ton of companies in your portfolio, a ton of companies everywhere all over the world. So how do you think about recruiting senior talent?
So there's Silicon Valley, and then there's 315 million other people, right? And so you look where you look, right? Georgia Tech, Georgia, there's so many great, there's schools here, right, that have great talent, right? There's so many good schools with so much great talent that I don't have, that's not really a problem for me. I haven't run into it. Now, it's a little bit easier for me personally, because people give me the benefit of the doubt, for better or worse. But you just go to the schools, go talk to them, go to their career days,
Use your mic.
So if you're talking about senior talent, management type senior talent, right, there's still, right, part of the challenge then is the networking side of it, and you might have to use recruiters, right? You might have to use third parties to help you, but they're out there, right? It's rare that you have a company that's so unique that there isn't somebody that has relevant experience or experience that can help you. And you don't need the perfect person, because going to Silicon Valley, everybody thinks they're a hero, right? Or it's like, hey, I went to Stanford. Now, out there, that's like, I'll hire you. In Dallas, that excludes you.
Gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, we have a hard stop for Mark to get to his next event and meetings. I wanted to save just enough time to ask the question, in addition to what kind of investments he's doing, that everybody wanted to know, which was to give us a quick summary of the current political situation, and where does that lead Mark Cuban?
Georgia's a red state, right? I probably shouldn't say anything then. Look, I mean, it's something I'm seriously considering. If you followed anything I've said, one clip, there you go. I'm for smaller government. I think there's a solution to healthcare. I think any healthcare system built on insurance will fail, which means, you know, the ACA has issues, but also means the repeal and replace options that are coming forward won't work either, right? And if you look to politicians for solutions, you're always going to be disappointed. And so, you know, maybe you agree with what's happening in Washington, you like the person that's there right now, maybe you don't. But the reason I'm even considering it is that, like each and every one of you, like I said earlier, you have a problem that you're trying to solve. You don't turn to somebody else and say, you fix it. You don't look backwards and say, the person that was here before me screwed up, it's their fault. You do the work. There's only one person responsible in your company, and that's the person in charge, right? It all comes back to you. I think the same thing should happen in Washington, D.C. If you look to Congress for solutions, you're not going to get any. If you're always saying, why don't the Republicans do this, or why don't the Democrats do that, you're not going to get any solution. I'm an independent. If I run, there's a lot of things that to go into that decision. I don't, you know, maybe I'd run as independent, I don't know. But the one thing I'm certain about, that we need somebody going in with solutions. And if I think I have solutions, and I can convince my wife, because honestly, if I was single, I would definitely be running. But I'm not. And there's only one country more important than the United States of America to me, and that's the country of the Cuban household. And I'm not the president there by a long shot. I haven't even been elected to a high office yet, so hopefully that answers some of your questions there.
Mark, thank you very, very much for coming.
Thank you.